Larry Johnson was one of the most dominant running backs the NFL had ever seen, breaking records that still stand today. But in 2004, his own head coach publicly humiliated him with 8 devastating words. He needs to take the diapers off and go play. Those words from Dick Vermeil sparked something inside Johnson, but not in the way anyone expected. Deep down, beneath his powerful runs and record-breaking seasons, Johnson was battling demons that would eventually cost him everything. Born to a defensive line coach at Penn State, football wasn't just Larry Johnson's dream, it was his destiny. But while his father, Larry Johnson Sr., was molding future NFL stars, young Larry was learning a lesson that would haunt him for life. Patience wasn't an option. By 2002, Johnson had become unstoppable. 2,087 yards in a single season. 3rd place in the Heisman voting. The Kansas City Chiefs couldn't resist using their first-round pick on him. But what happened next shocked everyone. See, the Chiefs already had a superstar running back. Priest Holmes was coming off 3 straight Pro Bowl seasons, and he wasn't ready to give up his throne. For the first time in his life, Larry Johnson had to wait his turn. And that's when everything started to unravel. The frustration was building, the rage was growing, and while Johnson stood on the sidelines watching Holmes dominate, nobody knew that this situation would create one of the NFL's most explosive rises, and one of its most devastating falls. Being the son of a college football coach meant expectations were high from day one. Larry Johnson Sr. wasn't just any coach, he was Penn State's defensive line guru, the man who turned college players into NFL stars. For young Larry, that meant one thing. Greatness wasn't just expected, it was demanded. At Penn State, Johnson lived up to every expectation. His senior year wasn't just good, it was historic. 2,087 yards, 20 touchdowns, a highlight reel that had NFL scouts drooling. But the most impressive part, he averaged 8.0 yards per carry, a number that seemed impossible at the highest level of college football. By the time the 2003 NFL Draft came around, Johnson was ready to take the NFL by storm. The Kansas City Chiefs selected him 27th overall, and Johnson thought his path to NFL stardom was set. But that's when reality hit him like a linebacker in the open field. Priest Holmes, the Chiefs' star running back, was in the prime of his career. In 2003, Holmes had just rushed for 1,420 yards and scored 27 touchdowns. The veteran wasn't just good, he was revolutionizing the position. For Johnson, this meant something he'd never experienced before: sitting on the bench. In his rookie season, he carried the ball just 20 times, less than some quarterbacks. The frustration began to build. Here was a first-round pick, a college superstar, reduced to watching from the sidelines. Then came the moment that changed everything. In a press conference that would go viral before viral was even a thing, Chiefs head coach Dick Vermeil unleashed those 8 words that would follow Johnson forever. He needs to take the diapers off and go play. The comment hit Johnson like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just criticism, this was public humiliation. But instead of breaking him, it lit a fire that would soon consume the NFL. Johnson started working harder, staying later, pushing himself beyond his limits. He was determined to prove Vermeil wrong, to show the world that he wasn't just another entitled rookie. Vermeil's plan succeeded. As later in an interview years after making the diapers off comment, Dick Vermeil explained that he wanted to push Johnson's buttons. "I knew he had talent," Vermeil said, "but he needed to grow up." That comment wasn't just for him, it was for the team to see that nothing would be handed to him. Vermeil later admitted he admired how Johnson used those words as motivation, but the football gods had other plans. In 2004, Johnson's carries increased to a whopping 120 attempts. Still stuck behind Holmes, still waiting for his chance. The pressure continued to mount. Johnson was a powder keg waiting to explode. Then, in 2005, everything changed. Priest Holmes suffered a career-altering neck injury, and suddenly, the keys to the Chiefs' kingdom were handed to Larry Johnson. What happened next would rewrite the NFL record books. Despite their competition for carries, Priest Holmes once praised Johnson for his determination. "He didn't just sit back and sulk," Holmes said. "He studied, he learned. When his moment came, he wasn't just ready, he was unstoppable." Holmes reportedly worked with Johnson during practices, helping him fine-tune his vision and patience. The 2005 season wasn't just Johnson's breakout, it was his revenge tour. With Priest Holmes' sideline, Johnson finally had his chance to prove every doubter wrong, and prove them wrong he did. In just 11 starts, he exploded for 1,750 yards and 20 touchdowns. Those weren't just good numbers, they were MVP caliber stats. The guy in diapers was now making the NFL look like child's play. Johnson's first full game as the starting running back in 2005 came against the Houston Texans. Teammates recalled him pacing the locker room pregame, muttering to himself, "They'll see today, they'll all see." Johnson went on to rush for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns, silencing any lingering doubts. But 2005 was just the appetizer. In 2006, Johnson unleashed one of the most dominant seasons in NFL history. 1,789 yards, 17 touchdowns. But something else was happening, something that would come back to haunt him. The Chiefs were running him to the ground, 416 carries. Let that sink in. No running back in NFL history had ever been used this much in a single season. Johnson wasn't just breaking records, he was breaking his body. Kansas City's Pro Bowl lineman Will Shields once said that blocking Johnson was a unique challenge. He ran with such anger that we knew if we gave him even a sliver of daylight, he'd make something happen. But if we missed an assignment, he'd let us know in the huddle, loudly. But success has a way of changing people. With each touchdown, with each 100-yard game, Johnson's ego grew. The chip on his shoulder didn't disappear. It just got bigger. He wanted more carries, more money, more respect. In 2007, he held out for a new contract. The Chiefs gave in, making him one of the highest-paid running backs in NFL history with a $45 million deal. That's when the wheels started to come off. The same intensity that made him great began to work against him. Off-field incidents piled up. Legal troubles emerged. And his body, the one that had endured those 416 carries, started breaking down. A foot injury here, a hamstring there. The unstoppable force was becoming increasingly stoppable. By 2009, the Chiefs had seen enough. They traded their former star to the Cincinnati Bengals. Johnson would bounce around, from Cincinnati to Washington to Miami. But he was never the same. The player who once couldn't be tackled now couldn't find a team willing to give him the ball. But the real battle was just beginning. After retirement, Johnson started showing symptoms that terrified him. Memory loss, mood swings, rage episodes. The same brain that had helped him memorize complex playbooks was now betraying him. CTE, the NFL's darkest secret, was becoming his daily reality. Life after football hit Johnson harder than any linebacker ever could. Those 416 carries in 2006? They weren't just a record, they were the beginning of a nightmare that would follow him into retirement. The symptoms started small, headaches, confusion, and moments of unexplained anger, but they grew into something much darker. In 2018, Johnson went public with his struggles. In a series of haunting social media posts, he described what he called his demons. He couldn't remember entire seasons of his career. Simple conversations became challenging. The man who once carried an NFL franchise on his shoulders now struggled to carry on normal conversations. He wrote that he believed he was living with CTE, the brain condition that had claimed so many former players. But Johnson's story wasn't just about physical trauma. The mental toll of his journey, from coach's son to NFL star to forgotten player, weighed heavily. Social media became his outlet, but often for the wrong reasons. Controversial tweets, public outbursts. Each incident pushed him further from the spotlight he once commanded. Today, Larry Johnson's legacy is complicated. Some remember the record-breaking runs, the power, the dominance. Others focus on the controversies, the struggles, the falls from grace. But his teammates and coaches admired him enough. In a candid interview, Chiefs guard Brian Waters described Johnson as the most mentally tough player I ever blocked for. Waters added, he took all the criticism, the expectations, and he turned them into fuel. But the man carried more than the ball. He carried the pressure of an entire franchise. From a coach's son in State College to a star in Kansas City, from taking off the diapers to breaking records, from NFL glory to post-career battles, Larry Johnson's story isn't just about football. It's about expectations, pressure, redemption, and the cost of greatness. The same fire that made him unstoppable on the field ended up burning him off it. Today, Larry Johnson's voice serves a different purpose. While he's no longer breaking tackles or setting records, he's breaking silence on football's darkest secret. Through social media and interviews, he documents his daily struggles with what he believes are CTE symptoms, not for sympathy, but as a warning to the next generation of players. Those record-breaking 416 carries in 2006, they're still an NFL record, but Johnson wants people to see beyond the numbers. Every carry was a hit, he once said. Every hit was adding up. Now, at just 44 years old, he estimates he's experienced over 1,500 concussions throughout his career. Each one left an invisible scar that he carries to this day. In Kansas City, his #27 jersey still brings back memories of those incredible seasons. Fans still talk about the power, the speed, the determination. But few realize that their hero was slowly breaking down with each legendary performance. He has spoken about battling dark impulses, noting, "I could be Aaron Hernandez. I could be him." But he survived, and credits his daughter with giving him a reason to live, saying, "She's the only reason why I'm trying to get right recently." Johnson has found purpose in sharing his story. He's not just talking about football anymore, he's talking about mental health, about brain trauma, about the real cost of playing the game at the highest level. The man who once let his running do the talking is now using his voice to make a difference. But in the end, Larry Johnson's story isn't just about carries, yards, or touchdowns. It's about what happens when the cheering stops, when the lights fade, and when a gladiator has to face his toughest opponent yet, himself. And while his playing days may be over, his most important battle, the fight to be heard, to be understood, to make a difference, continues to this day. Some call it tragic, others call it enlightening. But perhaps Larry Johnson's true legacy isn't about what he did on the field. It's about what he's teaching us long after his final carry. The cheering stops. And now it's your turn to reflect. What do you think is the real price of glory in the NFL? Should players like Larry Johnson be remembered more for their on-field dominance or the struggles they faced off the field? And perhaps the toughest question of all, what can the NFL do to better protect its players from the long-term consequences of the game? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters in these conversations about mental health, player safety, and the true cost of athletic greatness. And as we continue to learn from stories like Larry's, let's not forget the lessons they leave behind, not just for the players, but for all of us who love the game. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the stats. Until next time, take care and keep the conversation going.